The other item I have has to do with retention ponds, and I'd like to add to that Sawmill Creek. I brought this up before, that there are some people who have approached me that said the retention ponds on their property are not functioning at full capacity. They're clogging up, or silt is building up. And they're asking me who's responsible to maintain them. And the second part of the remark is, I know that Sawmill Creek is a major drain, right, for stormwater. There are parts of that stream that are blocked up with fallen trees or debris, and it is blocking the water and pushing it into people's yards. And they're asking me if it is the city's responsibility to keep that waterway open and flowing.
Okay, I guess a two-part answer. The first answer is, as to retention and detention ponds, it's the property owner's responsibility to maintain those. It just has always been that way in the city. That could be an onerous proposition for property owners, though. As to the water courses in the city, Sawmill Creek in particular, the city has the authority pursuant to a specific revised code section to keep the water courses within the city clear. And we utilized that statute, Mr. Tisch helped me out, maybe 15 years ago, to clear large portions of Sawmill Creek.
1992.
And I would just say at that time, the city, we went in there and cleared Sawmill Creek, and it's kind of a get what you pray for type. I mean, when it was cleared, it was a very different looking, aesthetically looking creek bed than before it had been cleared. But yeah, the city has the authority to do that. Now, on the retention and detention ponds, if the city has an easement, a maintenance easement, it's the city's responsibility, but most of those are on lots. And we force them to be on platted lots so that the property owner has to maintain them.
It gets a bit, good. No, sorry, Chuck. I was going to say, it gets a bit complicated in Kings Lane?
Kings Lane.
There's multiple properties.
Kings Lake was a lake developed on Howard Welsh's property, which is the property that is now the Kings Lake subdivision. That lake's been there for I don't know how long. That lake has always been a lake and is not a retention pond. I believe that lake is owned by 8 or 10 property owners that surround it.
So it's not considered,
It is not.
It is a retention pond?
No, it is not a retention pond. Granted, stormwater flows into it, but the water from that subdivision always has flowed into that area. Mm-hmm. I saw a memo that alluded to the fact that water was getting in from as far away as Canfield High School. That's not true. Water from South Broad Street does not get that way. South Broad Street water flows south and down past the fairgrounds. Part of Kings Lake actually flows to the north and in behind the cemetery on East Main Street, and then flows to the east and goes down through the apartments. So the area that's going into the Kings Lake area is just the area that is Hood Drive on the west, probably some of the lots on Colonial, Majestic Court, Squires Court, Kings Lane, and Janet Drive would come and go into that lake in that area.
So is that a factor if the retention pond is draining multiple places, not just that area? Does that matter in terms of whose responsibility it is?
Well, again, retention ponds are generally the responsibility of the property owner.
Okay, so then my last question is about this topic, because we don't have authority to force them to dredge their retention pond. If they want to let it fill up and become a garden or a marsh, it's okay.
We have the authority to go in there and clean it up, and we would do so.
And I think that's similar to the water course situation. We cleaned the water course. Property owners, and correct me on this, take a look at the Ohio Revised Code, it's always been my understanding, property owners have the responsibility to maintain the open water course. If they fail to do that, then the city can take some action to either force them to do that or go in and actually do that.
Correct.
And charge them if we were so
Correct.
inclined.
And we
Yeah, I
did-
think it, maybe we cross that bridge when we get to it. I think you mentioned at one of our meetings, Mark, that might be an unfair financial burden on
well,
certain
yeah,
people in our
sure.
city.
Yeah,
We have
absolutely.
to take that into consideration.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's some big retention ponds, and over years, they get filled with a lot of things, and it would be a heck of a project for a property owner. However, they know it when they buy the lot,
Yes.
or should.